I grew up in Iowa, the heartland of America. If you have visited here, you might think it was a bit boring. Lots of fields of corn and soybeans, no mountains, no oceans. But it is actually a very interesting place and has been for many, many years. Your students probably know about ice ages from the popular Ice Age movies. But do they know that these characters are based on real animals? Many of these animals lived here in Iowa about 15,000 years ago. What I just stated is a claim. What evidence do I have to prove it? And how do ice ages relate to energy? Our claim that mammoths roamed Iowa is based on fossils like these tusks found in northwest Iowa. Compare them to the photo of a frozen woolly mammoth discovered in Siberia in 2002. In the movie, Sid the Sloth was a little guy. But in Iowa, we have found the remains of a giant sloth that stood 10 feet tall. The red bones on the skeleton are the complete bones that scientists uncovered. The yellow ones were found in pieces. In addition to these bones, there are landforms across the state that are evidence of glaciation. Using carbon dating on the bones and the geological record, scientists have estimated the location and dates for our most recent Iowa glaciers. These were continental glaciers that spread across large areas. The ice covering Greenland and Antarctica are also continental glaciers. Notice the glacier is getting smaller here compared to 300 years earlier. 2,000 years later, the area covered by the glacier is much smaller. Scientists say the glacier has retreated, but that simply means it melted. The area in white on this map would have been covered with ice all summer long. I'm going to quickly run through these slides so you can see this glacier retreating. This map shows the location of the retreating glaciers again, and the location of plants and animals based on archaeological discoveries. Eventually, the climate and landscape would change as prairie covered our state. The explanation for this change in climate has changed over time and is a wonderful example of how scientific theories change and evolve based on new evidence. Understanding energy flows is a big part of this story, too. Here's the puzzle. Giant boulders, completely different from the local bedrock, were transported many miles from their source. The answer before 1800 would be based on the story of Noah's Ark and the Great Deluge. Scientists at the time believed the rocks were moved by water. They had never been to the mountains where ice could be found under the boulders. When they learned this, they adapted the explanation. They believed the boulders were still carried by water, but they were on giant icebergs. Compare the size of the boulder to the trees in this picture. This is the iceberg. The Great Flood was also used to explain other geologic mysteries, like the scratches or striations on bedrock and deposits of loose sands and multi-sized gravel called diluvium or drift. Scientists also observed that terrestrial and marine rocks alternated on exposed outcrops. This led them to believe that there had been a series of floods, and the Great Flood referred to in the Bible was the most recent. The cause of the flooding? They believed mountain building was a rapid process which caused huge ocean waves and rapid melting of mountain glaciers. Scientists in the 1800s, especially those who had visited the Alps and seen glaciers and the landforms they left behind, began to question the flooding explanation. By the 1840s, there was a glacial theory proposed, but it was not widely accepted. There was not enough evidence. Jean de Charpentier, in 1835, published a paper that described the differences between observed evidence and what would be expected by water transportation. For example, the erratics were not rounded like river stones, and they were not found with other deposits that water would have carried. Other scientists also spoke or wrote about a glacial explanation. In 1837, the term Ice Age was used by Schimper for the first time. In 1837, Louis Agassiz president of the Swiss Society of Natural History, presented a summary of the evidence supporting the glacial theory. It was based on observations of features found near existing glaciers in the Alps. He argued against the theory of floods, mudslides, and iceberg drift because they would have filled up valleys and smoothed out irregularities with their deposits. Agassiz believed that large areas had been covered by glaciers, from the North Pole to the Mediterranean. The biggest problem to accepting his glacial explanation is related to energy. To have areas of large glaciation, the Earth had to be much cooler. What evidence could be found that would indicate the Earth's past temperature? What could explain why the amount of energy in the system had changed? Were other parts of the Northern Hemisphere also covered with glaciers? These were the questions scientists of the 19th century were trying to answer. Before continuing on, please do some formative evaluation. Answer the questions in the next module before watching the next exciting segment.